Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News to bring you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us, Jonathan New from The Guardian and David Ornstein from The Athletic. Welcome on to you both. Let's quickly run you through the back pages as they stand this Thursday evening. Back page of the Times talks about England's win in Greece. Carsley's gamble pays off. You can see there Ollie Watkins celebrating Jude Bellingham as well. He had a say in the second goal, and Curtis Jones with the third for England. Successful night in Athens. Back page of The Sun. H-bomb. A Kane axe pays off in Carsley's drive to create leaders. Rory to no cash. Rory McIlroy says that players shouldn't be paid to play in the Ryder Cup. That page of The Guardian. Greek cruise is the headline there. Ollie Watkins celebrating. Plenty more besides. Steve Borthwick derives feeling of pressure to end losing streak. Back page of the Ice, shaking it up. Jones flick on England debut gives Tuchel food for thought. And also there at the bottom, UEFA are investigating David Coote, the suspended referee, after video of him snorting powder. Back page of the Mail. United's threat to disabled fans' budget. Outcry over disgraceful Ineos plan to slash costs. That's the headline there, but the picture again is celebrating Ollie Watkins as Lee Carsley's Kane gamble pays off. OK, welcome once again to Jonathan and to David. We're going to start off, of course, with England, who are back top of their Nations League group. And David, I mean, they knew they had to win by 2 clear goals. They did that. I mean, it took a while for the second to come. How do you feel, this sort of maybe redresses the balance after all of the kind of noise around, the withdrawals and then, Lee Carsley, these 2 games, but England did what they needed to do and then some?
Well, there's always noise around England, David, whatever happens. And tonight it's noise of the better variety, because that was fantastic for Lee Carsley and those players. There was so much talk about players who weren't part of the squad, players who were, but these really stake their claim, and they'll have an eye on the next World Cup and sort of really establishing themselves at international level. It was a match that was sort of dominated before kickoff by the omission of Harry Kane, which really felt quite remarkable. But coming off the back of it, we're not really talking about it because there were so many standout performances. And, Greece didn't play very well, but they did at Wembley. They completely dominated England on one of the worst nights we've seen in a long time for English football at international level. And so let's not dismiss the quality of this England performance and the pressure coming into it. They needed to win by 2 goals. They won by 3, and they put themselves in a commanding position as they go to play Ireland on Sunday. Kane will come back into the side. But there's some real food for thought there. And some of the players who are absent, some who are uncertain about their positions, may be feeling even more so after that performance. And it goes right from the back with Jordan Pickford through the defence and midfield. Noni Madueke really set the tone on the right-hand side. Ollie Watkins, yet again, with a crucial goal for England. Jude Bellingham was outstanding start to finish. And then, of course, the flourish provided by Curtis Jones and Morgan Rogers making his debut. It was sensational, to be honest, and really shifts the tone.
Yeah, lots of positive noise, as you say. Morgan Rogers and also, we mentioned there, Curtis Jones, making their debuts for England. Let's just have a look at the back page of The Guardian, shall we, and how they are reporting this story. Greek cruise, Watkins and Jones fire England to crucial win. I mean, as far as you're concerned, Jonathan, and this is how your paper are talking about it, what about those players who are fresh into the setup? I mean, he did have his hand forced, Lee Carsley, by the withdrawals, but in the end, these players have proved that they are ready for the challenge and they could be thinking about that 2026 World Cup, as David says.
Yeah, he did. And I think the theme that's run through these 5 games under Carsley is that he has consistently put the long-term development of the squad and the players in it above his own reputation at times. He's been prepared to take risks. I think there was a lot of pearl clutching about Harry Kane being dropped, but there might be a moment in the future where Harry Kane is injured or suspended for whatever reason, and England need to go into a major tournament game with Ollie Watkins starting at number 9. And they are very different strikers. They make different runs. They have different attributes, and so the team needs to know how they're going to play in 90 minutes with Watkins at number 9. You see guys like Angel Gomez and Curtis Jones getting minutes. And so England now have solutions, like real sort of passing solutions in central midfield, and players who have got game time that they might not have got otherwise. So I think that's been the real asset. I mean, like, England aren't going to be judged on their performance in, with all the greatest of respect to Nations League, League B2. They're not going to be judged on those performances. It's about developing these players for the next tournament cycle, 2026, and making sure they have the experience of playing with each other, the experience of being in camp, and the experience of actually being challenged. This was probably, along with the game in Dublin, the toughest atmosphere that England will have faced in this autumn campaign. So the fact that so many players came through it, they'll be better for the experience, and I think the squad as a whole, with that competition for places now, will also be better for that experience.
Let's just have a look at the back page of The Sun as we continue to talk England. And it has the headline, H-bomb. Sorry, H for Harry, obviously. Kane axe pays off in Carsley's drive to create leaders. Yeah, on that topic of a leadership, because, I mean, this is something that, you look at the teams that, say, the big teams who've been struggling before. If you look at, say, Manchester United or Chelsea before they've recently sort of picked up in form, you go, well, where are the leaders in those teams? And now, with England, it is the case of, Harry Kane's the captain, but you need players all over the pitch who can do that. Who do you think, aside, say, Jude Bellingham, who we know is going to be a leader, and, say, Declan Rice, amongst the younger players, David, who do you think has the necessary qualities to take up that kind of mantle?
Yeah, I don't think the leadership comes through age. These players are very experienced at club level in arguably the biggest league on the planet, and they face great pressure in the sort of week in, week out treadmill that they're involved in. And so when you see the likes of Jordan Pickford, who's by far and away England's number one, and that it was proved again tonight. Trent Alexander-Arnold, when he's fit, he's one of the most talented players in world football. And there are players who will come back, like Declan Rice, like Bukayo Saka, all of whom lead by example when they play. We'll see Harry Kane. He's got a lot left in the tank, and despite the selection decision tonight, he's probably one of England's best players ever, for sure, and the statistics and goal scoring numbers bear that out. You even look at performances tonight like Curtis Jones and the way he talks, and in the build up to the match, how fatherhood has sort of helped his performance on the pitch, and the way he's been playing for Liverpool as well. And you sort of think to yourself that there are some real characters there. Anthony Gordon, who's finally getting a proper run out after slightly bizarre lack of minutes for England at the Euros. John Stones will come back into the team when he's fit, and a fantastic leader. Mark Gehi has got it in him as well, even though he's quite quiet. His performances speak for themselves. And a word also tonight for Lewis Hall, not necessarily on the leadership front, but he came on and played a faultless 45 minutes. And Lee Carsley has had such scrutiny over him, but we now know that Greece game was shrouded in sort of uncertainty for him about what he could say, what he couldn't, with the incoming Thomas Tuchel that was revealed a little bit later. It was a bit of a mess then, but I think if he finishes with a flourish against Ireland, his tenure will come to be reflected on as one that was really positive. And as Johnny says, the faith that he showed in the young players, many of whom have come through the under-21 system with him, Taylor Harwood-Bellis getting a call up for this camp, is really testament to a system that, despite some low moments, it does seem to be working. And Thomas Tuchel is going to inherit a very talented bunch of players who really should be challenging for that trophy at the World Cup.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Tuchel and this sort of transition, because obviously England needed to win and win by 2 clear goals tonight. They've done that. They are top of the group. It's in their hands. How much easier does that make that switch over, Jonathan, when it comes to the first games that he will oversee in March, and that for it to be a smoother transition, with England hopefully having secured their place back in the top tier of the Nations League?
Yeah, I think it makes a small difference. You obviously don't want to be playing playoff games in March, and in the longer term, getting promoted back up to League A, you get a better quality of opposition. You're getting stronger tests. That kind of thing is all going to help. I think by the time Tuchel comes in, it's going to be what, 3 or 4 months since this international break. The lay of the land is going to be totally different. It is going to feel like a new broom in so many ways. Tuchel's obviously going to have his own. He's going to have his own thoughts on things like tactics and personnel. He's going to have his own thoughts on players that should make the squad. So that is going to feel like a real sense of renewal. I think Carsley has taken this. He's actually advanced the squad. He's advanced this group of players. That there are players who have got game time that would not otherwise have been getting game time, and I think that is going to help Tuchel as well. What he wants, what he wants to do with this group of players, that's very much up to him. And we wait to see what he does with that. But I think Carsley's actually left him in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, decent platform being set by Lee Carsley right now. Let's move on, shall we, to the big story in the Telegraph, David. Rebel League in talks to sign world's best rugby players. And then there on the left a little bit more. F1-style breakaway backed by US cash could split sport. Up to 20 global stars already believed to be interested. Right, tell us more, David. Unpack this one for us.
You can read different versions of this. Telegraph, Mail, Times have all got dispatches on it. It's fascinating. Immediately your mind springs to the Liv Golf breakaway and various sort of rebel movements in cricket as well. It goes back historically, the Kerry Packer revolution, and then on more recently to the Indian Premier League and so on. The first thing you always hear in these cases is of people exploring it, players, agents, the money that might be on offer, the sort of modern methods to tap into new markets, the idea that it would be the men's and the women's going on a sort of circus-style roadshow with fewer games, all of these attractive elements, bigger money, investment maybe from Middle East and the USA. And then you see the pushback that comes from the authorities who would make it incredibly tough. The establishment in terms of the strength of contracts, in terms of the agreements that are already in place, potential threats against those who might be enticed by this. But as we've seen with the Liv Golf movement, often that softens over time. And if this comes about, because it hasn't yet, then and it's successful, then it sort of becomes a bit of an unstoppable force when there's so much money at play and sort of compromises have to be struck. And we've seen that in the way that somebody like Rory McIlroy has softened in his conversation when he was initially so resistant on the Liv Golf movement, and then talking about how the tours can coexist and maybe the initial idea that Ryder Cup players wouldn't be allowed to play if they were part of the Liv series, but now that's sort of being appealed against and it's still being debated. So this is a potentially fascinating development for rugby at a time where there's a bit of a crisis when it comes to revenues. We've seen what Wales have been through in the last year or so, and there'll be many in rugby looking at this as potential salvation. There'll be many who fear its impact. We'll have to wait and see how it develops, but clearly a movement has been going on behind the scenes. Many people are privy to the discussions, and it appears to be the way that many sports are going now, one after the next, being talked about in terms of sort of potential breakaways and takeovers, and it's a fascinating potential development.
Jonathan, when you look at the detail of all of this, I'm just looking into the article here. So attempts have already been made to lure 200 top players, with between 10 and 20 of the sport's biggest names indicating interest. And the new venture, which would require mammoth financial backing to get off the ground, estimated to be around £500 million, an F1-style travelling event involving 8 teams. I mean, this is a seismic change, isn't it, into the way that rugby as a sport traditionally operates. I mean, and it seems like, that there's real credibility behind the idea, and that they've already gone quite far down the track in terms of trying to get liftoff on it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, maybe I'm sticking my neck out here, but this, it's not going to happen. I think rugby union you sign up 20 of the world's best golfers and you have a tournament, people will watch that. You sign up 20 of the world's best cricketers, you sign Joss Butler and whatever, and Chris Gale, and you have a, you have a league. You sign up 20 of the world's best rugby players. You don't even have a game. You don't have a match yet. And it's also a sport that I don't think it has the same individual star appeal that sports like golf or tennis or cricket do. One of two things is going on here. Either, this is like David mentioned, it's a live style deal where essentially whoever's financially backing this wants a seat at the table. It's a kind of a bargaining chip to try and get some leverage, to try and sort of force the hand of the game's administrators. Or it's a story that's been, that is there for the players to go to their federation and say, look, this is the money that's on the table. These are the offers that are on the table, and try to secure some kind of improved remuneration for themselves. It seems to me it's one of those two things, because I just cannot, for the life of me, conceive how a league like this will get off the ground. I just can't logistically see it happening.
Yeah, David, what do you make of what Jonathan's just said there?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. And it's not just the remuneration. I think, many players have been talking about the strain that the international schedule in particular is putting on them physically. They're exhausted, and that's not even mentioning club rugby. And so, if this brings about some sort of improvement to their finances, to the schedule, and also maybe some technological improvements, if you read down the pieces, they sort of explain how this has already jolted the authorities into life, and they're talking about a potential draft style transfer system for rugby, to sort of glitz it up a bit, and certain innovations that would improve the existing product. And at this point, when it's just a sort of concept and talks, reportedly, it may be something that is designed to put pressure on the status quo to improve it and make it a better environment for those involved.
One to watch, certainly. Thank you very much for the moment, David and Jonathan. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in the Mail. The headline: United's threats to disable fans' budget, outcry over disgraceful Ineos plan to slash costs. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes' time. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Jonathan New from The Guardian and David Ornstein from The Athletic. Let's go to the back page of the Mail. And the headline here, we showed it to you briefly before the break, United's threat to disable fans' budget, outcry over disgraceful Ineos plan to slash costs. It appears MUDSA, M-U-D-S-A, this is one of the main official disabled supporters clubs for Manchester United, receive £40,000 a year, yet that is under threat, according to this piece by Mike Keegan. Jonathan, what is your take on this story, just as a starting point?
Yeah, if true, it is disgraceful. I mean, the story says that United are planning, or considering slashing the budget, the £40,000 budget, in half, which would save £20,000. And when you consider some of the sums that they've been paying for really quite substandard players, and naming no names, but Anthony, you got to think there is more to this than simply saving money. It's not just about cost cutting, and this is what happens with all kinds of vampiric capitalistic regimes. You saw it with the coalition government, where the cutting of costs becomes almost a kind of an exemplary, look at us, sort of reverse virtue signaling, where the cruelty becomes the point. It's almost just sort of to blazon to the world, look at how great we are at slashing budgets for no apparent reason. I think there's a reason that these stories are appearing now, and I don't think Ineos, to be honest, will be that displeased that this story has come out, because it shows to shareholders and investors that they are going to leave no stone unturned in slashing the cost base of Manchester United. So I think this story is going to get obviously a huge amount of pushback from United fans, but to the investors and to the shareholders who bankroll the club, I think they'll be quite pleased.
David, briefly, I mean, PR-wise, this doesn't look great for United. When they're, as you mentioned, like, £20,000. Well, every single player in their squad will earn more than that in a week.
Terrible optics, unfortunately, with this story. No decision has been made, as Mike points out in the story, so they might not go through with it. But the fact they're considering it doesn't reflect well. It's not going to play well at all with the public. As Johnny says, it may do with investors. Look, I think everything's on the table, as Johnny points out. No stone being left unturned. Sir Alex Ferguson's lost his ambassadorial role at £2 million per year. I mean, this feels like peanuts. The amount Manchester United have spent on transfers that haven't worked out, on contracts, on staff, managerial severance. It feels completely unnecessary, but times are tough financially at Old Trafford, and they're looking at every sort of avenue. So this feels bizarre, and it's one that they didn't need publicly, but perhaps they feel privately it's something they need to consider.
OK, let's switch focus and move to The Guardian, your paper, Jonathan, and story involving Rory McIlroy's comments at basically aiming at the US team and the reports that they could be splitting a $5 million fund, if you like, a pot for all of the players to play the next Ryder Cup. McIlroy doesn't believe that they should have that, and in fact, he would pay to play in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I kind of see both sides of this. I see the romantic, argument that this is something almost beyond money. It's beyond sport. It's it's like the Olympics. You do it for the love of the game. You do it for the honour. You do it for the prestige, for the legacy. Equally, the Ryder Cup generates 9-figure revenues every 2 years for the PGA of America and the PGA Tour. And who are the players working? Yeah, I mean, they're working pretty hard, and not just in terms of playing and practicing, but in terms of promotion these days. And they are the ones who make this event. And I think it's fair, it might be slightly cynical, but it's fair for these players to say, well, if we're generating all this revenue for the tour, should we not maybe see some of it? I mean, everyone else here is getting paid. The executives at the PGA Tour are getting paid out of it. Everyone covering it, everyone sort of working at the course, they're all getting a cut. So why shouldn't the players?
Let's finish off, shall we, with the Mirror and this fight that's coming up between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. David, I mean, that picture there, I don't think I was ever expected to see Mike Tyson back down to his wife fronts. But in just a minute, or slightly less than a minute, are you going to be watching, or what do you make of it?
I don't get up at 4 a.m, and I don't stay awake until 4 a.m. It's a bit bizarre. It's disconcerting that this fight pits somebody in his 20s against somebody, I think he's into his late 50s, Mike Tyson. So he's sort of more than double his age. It's going to sell, clearly, and Jake Paul's extremely popular. Mike Tyson was extremely popular. You'd be a bit concerned on the mismatch of either direction. It's going to sell subscriptions on Netflix, and it brings some intrigue for the modern generations, but maybe not for us of the more traditional variety.
Ever the cynic, David. No, I'm with you. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. Thank you, David.